Hi guys, I'm your host Manly Dog, and today we're going to be talking about the state of Destiny 2 and Bungie as a whole, and also Marathon. If anyone doesn't know, I am a fan of both games, Destiny 1, 2, and Marathon. Currently, the situation at hand is that Bungie is set to, has ended the live service production of Destiny 2. They've given a game a final update. It's been a great update, and they also had a campaign, the community had a campaign to kind of give a last push to show Sony and Bungie that we want eventually D3. So, but also at the same time, Bungie has moved its focus onto producing Marathon. This creates a lot of contention. A lot of people who played Destiny believe that Marathon is the reason for Destiny's failure, as in Bungie has taken all its supplies and all its resources and hinged its bet on an extraction shooter instead of a live service MMO that Destiny is, that already has a player base and a growing or I guess stabilized community. One thing I really would like to bring up though is Destiny is not without its fair share of issues, right? Just as Marathon, which we'll also talk about. Don't already start commenting that I am biased towards one or the other. I love both games. So, if anyone didn't know, Destiny 1 was one of the first games I ever pre-ordered digitally on a Xbox. Was an Xbox, just an Xbox One at the time, and I remember playing it and it being a very shallow game. But it was the first game to do something of its kind that kind of reminded me of Borderlands, but also combined the MMO light nature of like a game like World of Warcraft. And it combined those things and married them in such a beautiful way. And it felt like Destiny 1 was this big, the base Destiny 1 was this first iteration of something grand, something greater. There was areas you can access. There was this loot cave I remember sitting at that you'd shoot to get the engrams, I think they're called, that you needed to like get rare weapons and different weapons so you get the drops you want. It was really a fun time. I remember doing Vault of Glass, not day one, but week one, with a group of friends that I made through the Xbox Party Finder, and working at that and finally accomplishing that with some individuals that I'll never ever speak to again. But it was this very magical moment where it was like, I remember having to go through these portals and have to call out a symbol that I saw so everyone on the outside knew, and it was just really interesting and special, and there was nothing else like it. But the game had a severe lack of content and updates, and which is very shallow in its base, but it kept getting its updates, and I had dropped the game by then. I was no longer playing. I finished base Destiny and I just never returned to it after that. But it became a beloved classic that people really enjoyed. Despite its flaws and its sometimes middling expansions, it was still a good game. Ultimately, they moved on to Destiny 2, which reset everyone's progress. Destiny 2 had the same exact problem as Destiny 1 on launch. There was like this weird, very shallow version of the game that we got, where you took out so many different systems and things from Destiny 1 that they added in Destiny 1 to make it better, and took it away in Destiny 2, and it was just a shallow game again. And I remember playing base Destiny 2 a lot more than Destiny 1, believe it or not. I remember I sat at about 500 hours for Destiny 2, and I played up until the first raid came out once again, and I believe it's called the Callous Raid or something like that. And you had to fight this giant guy who sat on a throne. And everyone who loves Destiny knows this already, but I'm telling this to people who want to be briefed on the history of this. You fight this giant guy who sat on a throne, and once again you go into these portals, and you have to call out these symbols and everything like that. And I remember you have to jump through some hoops with a ball. Oh, it was so fun. I remember Sherpaing people through it, teaching them the raid as well, and helping people get their first raid clear. And it was such once again a magical moment of people I'll never game with again, and it was unlike anything I've ever played. I remember getting into Crucible and doing Trials of the Nine, and I never got my flawless trial win, but I for season 1, or I guess like the first week of trials that I really wanted, and after I didn't get that first one, I didn't want to do it anymore. I remember doing the Prestige Callous raid, you know. Oh no, I actually played up until the second part of that raid came out, where you fight something different. That was extremely fun as well. Not as good as that first one, but I remember those first two expansions instead of people loving them, people did not like them. They were very like lackluster content, and Bungie ultimately moved its business model to just release like these bigger expansions and not two small ones and then a big expansion. But I remember because of that critical reception to the first DLCs, I opted out of the game. I was no longer interested. I never touched it since. I remember returning when the game became free to play and realizing that every bit of content and $120 I'd spent on the game initially was gone because they vaulted content, which to me was the nail in the coffin that I would never play this game again because I couldn't support a developer who would take my purchase away, and things that I had spent my hard-earned money on. The value of my dollar was mitigated by them deciding to take it away. And I couldn't support that at all. You know, I couldn't get behind that. And also booting up the game when during that free-to-play moment, when it first became free-to-play, I was in a different spot. I wasn't in the same spot. All things were so different and so overwhelming, and the onboarding process was arguably the worst thing I've ever dealt with in my entire life in a video game, besides playing like the gacha mobile games. I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee 1 second. I got this like French roast brew. It's a dark brew. It's okay. It's just a little strong. Gives me the shakes a little bit. But maybe that's death. Maybe death's coming. But anyways, besides that, so I remember saying I'd never play that game again after that, and sure enough, I never touched it. And then so now that leads us to eventually a bunch of updates came out and the game was continued support. But I remember a lot of updates were underwhelming. There were minus a few. The final shape came out and it had its issues, but people really loved it, and it was the narrative endpoint of what the game was building to, which was, in my memory, the Black Pyramids they teased at the end of Destiny 2 campaign, original campaign that people can no longer play, which is crazy to me. So let's say eventually Bungie decided to make Marathon, and that, you know, that's current day, and it didn't get the player base that the game wanted. It's a very niche game. It's a very hard game, and to a lot of people it's unfun, which is valid. Extraction shooters aren't for everyone, and pivoting your community to an MMO light FPS looter shooter to an extraction shooter is not okay. That's hard to do. You're gonna have some people transfer over, but you're not going to have nearly as much transfer over. Extraction shooters are very niche. We're finding that out with Arc Raiders and its lackluster updates, but the difference is Arc Raiders is easy, very, very easy compared to Marathon. I remember in Arc Raiders I did every bit of content I could ever do, and then in Marathon, when I first hit Cryo Vault, which is the in-game content in that game, just being overwhelmed by what was happening and all the different things, but it did give me those flashes of the like D2 raids. So all that to say, what's the current situation? People are very, very upset. They think the resources are being dived to Marathon, and you guys are watching this not just for my news, not for just what I want to report, but for my opinion on this. And in my opinion, I think we should allow developers like Bungie to move on to new games and support them if you eventually want Destiny 3. Now I know everyone's already typing up the hate comments and clicking the dislike button, but please, I urge you to have a critical conversation here and not just parrot what people say on Twitter or Reddit or different things, because I'm open-minded, and that shows me that you as a viewer can be as well. So the thing is that Destiny 2 had some crazy influx of players. It was up and down, up and down, up and down. But for people like me who eventually want to play more Destiny, can't. It's just a matter of fact. I would need someone on the outside or inside teaching someone on the outside, and I don't think that's okay for an MMO game with a terrible onboarding process. That is not okay. I can't boot up my year one, day one character and know exactly what I need to do to progress and grow with in a good way, in a valid way, without being overwhelmed with all the different things, missing gear, and being in completely new locations that I've never seen before. And I think that leads to a bad experience for people who are returning or just getting into the game. And also, the game is free to play, but for a new player who boots up the game, you're going to realize that despite it being free to play, you're not going to be able to access much content, and you're going to have to eventually pay regardless, which is, that's just the nature of these things. So with that, it had a fluctuating player base. Bungie saw that. They created Marathon. Marathon didn't do what they didn't do the numbers they wanted, but they committed to saying they're going to continue to support Marathon and its growth. And they've even added PvE content and some really good content to the game that caters more to that PvE nature, but too little too late. You have a lot of players already who have opted out and are not touching the game. So how do you, as Bungie, what do you do besides just keep supporting Marathon? And that's a hard question. But they've had this recent thing where in the new Destiny update, they tease what was going to be either the next expansion. But in my opinion, I think they were teasing what's going to happen in Destiny 3 if Marathon continues to be supported. But it puts players at this crossroads, and the community just begins eating itself. I've never seen this before in my life, but Destiny players really don't like Marathon players, and Marathon players are kind of teasing and snapping at the Destiny players, saying your game's ending, and Destiny saying, well, your game doesn't have players. And it's just like this never-ending vicious cycle of the snake eating its own tail. And I think that's going to ultimately cause both games to fail, or continue to fail, or Bungie to close down and eventually discontinue support of games like Destiny and Marathon. So that's kind of my thoughts on it, really. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. I urge you to have a critical conversation and not just comment and parrot what you see on Twitter, because I don't think that warrants anything interesting anymore, because we see those conversations every day on the internet. So think about what you're going to say and realize that people are allowed to make new games and try different things and fail. It's just a fact of life. And I don't think continuing support of Destiny 2 would have had the critical success that Sony wants either, and Bungie. So they were kind of in between a rock and a hard place. I think maybe, you know, moving on to Destiny 3 would have been a better bet, and having to be able to announce that right now and say, hey, we're doing Marathon, but also Destiny 3 is down the road. But they can't say that right now because we don't know. They can't make any promises. But hopefully the continued support that just popped up with the game, sitting at 100k players, which is double the Marathon player base, it works out, you know. So anyways, guys, leave a like, let me know if you like these kind of videos. It's just talking head video where I like to talk about things that I care about and that I think about, and I'd love to keep making these videos. So if you guys show that support, I definitely will. So peace out, everyone. Have a good weekend. This has been your daily report. I guess not daily, maybe weekly. Your weekly report on things I care about. Take care.
This ain't goodbye, it's a warning sign. We're coming back stronger every single time. Hands up high for the pack tonight. We ain't done yet, we're just out of sight. Another stream down, another goal in sight. Manly dogs gon' shine when it's game time. Yeah, I don't stop when the camera fade. Champions are built when nobody's paid. While they sleeping, I'm sharpening steel. Every new stream, another chance to kill. Got dreams